Hey everyone, it's me, Joe Saiyan. Today we're going to be doing a build video for Dragon Ball Gekishin Squadra, but before we begin I need to point out a couple things. So if you don't want to listen to this intro, please hit the timestamps in the description or comments below to skip ahead. Now, I currently, at the time of recording, am a part of the Squadra Creators Program, copyright of Bird Studio, SHUEISHA, TOEI, Animation, and Bandai Namco Entertainment Incorporated. Now, with that being said, Squadra is a free-to-play MOBA game designed to be played 4v4 competitively, and I am saying that I am by no means a pro. So, I'm not a pro, MOBAs are skill-based, future updates can invalidate the builds, and moving forward, build suggestions and card suggestions and skill suggestions are all only suggestions, and you should adjust as needed based on your skill level at playing this game. Thank you for watching, and let's just go ahead and get right into it. Alright everyone, it is Squadra time again, and today's build video is going to be for Mini Goku, Daima Goku, Power Pole Goku, whatever you want to call him. So, I really like Mini Goku. He was super strong in the beginning of the game's life cycle. He has received some nerfs at the time of recording, but he's still a super fun character to be utilizing, and I do think he's kind of one of those characters that can definitely depend on players' actual skill to really enjoy and have fun with. So, I think he's still very good. But we're going to go through the breakdown of this character, go through his skills and some cards, and give you an idea or a baseline of how to really understand, play, and utilize him to the best of his abilities. So we're first going to go ahead and start with the breakdown of the unit, and then we'll go through his skill suggestions and then the card suggestions. So first and foremost, we have his Battle Gear passive, where he basically strengthens his strike damage when fighting enemies. It's a strengthening ability while in active combat, gradually increases the strike damage when fighting enemies. Strike damage increases more quickly when fighting a hero with a higher level than yours. I'm not going to say it's like a huge increase on the damage, but it definitely is evident of when it is active. He does have that white aura around him specifically when this is activated. Now, his rush attack is a physical attack with the power pole. Basically, while he's attacking, the range of the power pole is increasing in hitting enemies at a longer range the more he is attacking. His skill 1, Pansy, pops out and throws a little wasabi bomb. The bomb will explode after a set amount of time. The further the set position, the more time until the explosion. So if you force it out, it'll, like, you throw it out as far as possible, it'll take longer to explode. It can be moved with the rush attack, so you can place it down and kind of like play skee ball with it, essentially. And after being moved, it will explode in a specific direction after hitting an enemy, and it will apply continuous damage to the enemy hit by its explosion. The bomb will also explode if hit by the power pole dance, or unleash a larger explosion with Glorio's lightning bolt. Now, Glorio's lightning bolt, well, essentially he just calls down an unavoidable lightning bolt to the nearest enemy or pansy in range. Enemies or bombs near the initial bolt will be struck by further bolts, and the damage dealt will increase with each successful strike. So this is more of an attack that actually does more damage based on the enemies that are present. So it's not always going to be very obvious of how much damage it can do. It will do more damage against larger groups of enemies. It's going to be a little bit more difficult when it's just a 1v1. If you're 1v1ing, you're not going to see a huge increase of damage. Power pole dance is actually pretty decent. Basically what happens is you sweep through the surrounding area with the power pole performance, and it deals a little bit of damage to enemies who are further away. It's not actually a huge increase of damage. There's not very much damage at all with the power pole dance from my experience. but it also applies energy defense and movement speed up, and strike defense up and movement speed up, depending on the hit that you're hit with. So if you're hit with the ki blast, your energy defense will go up. If you're hit with a physical attack, your strike defense will go up. You can move while you're using it, and it can be canceled while using the rush attack, your left click. Now his super attack is the Swift Spark. He transforms into a Super Saiyan and dashes towards a position and unleashes a huge barrage of attacks. You get immunity to all in this state. The biggest thing I would say for this move is that you should utilize it as a moment where you are invincible and not necessarily as a super attack. The super attack itself will do good damage based on how much hits you hit, but you really want to just kind of use this as a counter to somebody, say, throwing a Spirit Bomb or an ultimate or a bunch of super attacks at you, because that's where the damage is going to come in for. All right, let's go ahead and go test out his skills and see what they look like here. So, let's see here. Once again, rush attack just kind of increases the range as you go. Goes out quite a bit of range there, as you can see. The normal radius is like right here, right on him where Vegeta is at. Like, this is the most range, like 2 squares. But the more you keep attacking, it increases to a third and almost a fourth square of hitting the enemy. Let's look at the Pansy Bomb, Wasabi Bomb. This is what's going to cause the continuous damage here. It does take a second to go off, but it will apply continuous damage to the enemy. Unfortunately, you can't really spam this per se, I don't believe. If you throw it out as far as possible, let's see what here. We have a 7-second cooldown on that, and it explodes after about 3 to 4 seconds. So you can probably try to throw that out and see if you can get 2 stacks in there, but I don't think it'll happen too often. Now at skill 2, you got a little bit longer range. You can throw it out there. Pop that out. Once again, about a 3 to 4 seconds to explode. Nice little bit of increase of radius right there. Let's look at it at level 3. Level 3 is a much bigger radius right here. Once again, throw it out as much as possible. A 6 or 7 second cooldown. Explosion. Huge radius right there. That is a huge radius to be exploding. Let's go ahead and look at his Glorio Strike. Now, Glorio Strike only goes within the radius of where Goku is at. So, there you go. That little spike there. And it has an 11-second cooldown. 11 seconds is actually crazy. I cannot sit here and wait for that. That's going to take forever. So, 11-second cooldown, just a little spike right there. Not crazy. Level 2, a little bit wider radius. 1 little spike. Once again, not a huge increase of damage there. And level 3, much bigger radius right there. Probably the most reliable range, in all honesty. I think at level 3, that's where you'll really see it. Much bigger damaging bolt. Now, as you read in the passive or heard, you need to use the Pansy Bomb in conjunction with this. So essentially what you want to do is you want to use that and then apply the Glorio hit. As you can see, we did a nice little chunk of damage there. It was pretty decent amount of damage with the continuous damage there. But the enemy does need to be kind of on top of that bomb. If we put this out to the outskirts of this right here, and then we activate the Glorio hit, it's definitely not anywhere near as much damage. I mean, he is a tank, so he's still going to take a good amount of damage. But yeah, that's a max level kind of state, so it's not an insane level. The Glorio Bolt alone isn't really that crazy by itself. You really do have to pair it with the Pansy Bomb to get anything. Now, the Power Pole Dance, you have actually 3 charges, and as you level it up, you'll get a larger effect on each of those abilities in AoE. Right now, this is the AoE at level 1, and you can just spam it constantly. Let's take off the cooldown on there so we can actually see how much the cooldown is. So the cooldown, I'm going to say, is about 5 seconds, 5-6 seconds. Let's see. It's about 7 seconds, actually. It's 7 seconds per stack, roughly, on that cooldown. Pretty large cooldown for the Power Pole Dance, but considering what it can do, lowering the attack and damage so much, it actually is pretty clutch. Also, it does apply a little bit of a movement speed, I think. Doesn't it apply movement speed? No, it does not. Yes, it does. It applies a little bit of movement speed. Let's see how much that increases at level 2. Level 2, a little bit of increased radius, but not too crazy. Yeah, it's nice. It's decent. Let's try at level 3. So at level 3, much wider radius right there. Doing a little bit of damage from a distance. Not really any damage whatsoever when you're right on top of them. So just to keep that in mind, you're only doing like 50, 27 right there. This, for whatever reason, is engineered to deal damage from a very large distance. Like, you want to almost poke with that couple 200s right there. But what we should really look at is how the Pansy Bomb can affect it. Let's go ahead and do this and pop that. So pretty easy to just throw the Pansy Bomb constantly and just pop that out there. That is one way to activate it. It's definitely not anywhere near the same amount of damage as Glorio Bolt. But I feel like this is kind of like what you do while you're waiting for it. So throwing that, doing the Glorio Bolt, you know, you're still waiting like a 15 seconds. You still have like a whole extra 5 seconds. You can still like pop this on here. So you want to use the power pole dance essentially with the Pansy Bomb when you're waiting for the Glorio cooldown. Now let's go ahead and look at his super attack. The super attack range increases the wider you go out, as you can see right here. And the more attacks you take while you're in this state, the more damage it'll do. But let's just get a little closer here, so see how much damage he does when you're right on top of their grill. Now that's an instance where you would do more damage because all of your hits are actually hitting. There is a unfortunate 90-second cooldown with that, or 80 to 90-second cooldown specifically. So there's a bit of a longer cooldown, or kind of average cooldown time for the super. Let's try that again, but a larger radius, and see how much damage we do. Still a good amount of damage right there. So there's not really any reason not to just charge it outwards, like to really get the wider radius. There's no reason not to do this. Just kind of be situationally aware that you do be careful how you move your mouse right there, because it's going to shrink or go up or down. You're going to want that to go out. Let's look at level 2. Level 2 has a much wider radius right here. I think this is when we potentially could see not doing too much damage. On point where the arrow is at in the radius, you're going to do a good amount of damage. You'll do some probably decent damage here. About the same as level 1, actually, which isn't too crazy when you think about that. So level 2 just increases the radius. But if you're out here on the outskirts... Oh, yep, you still do the same amount of damage, so I take that back. So at level 2, though, it's still not too much of an increase on damage. You're doing about the same level of damage no matter what, so long as they're still in the circle during all the hits. So let's look at level 3. Level 3 is a much, much wider radius and can go further out. This is actually kind of menacing. You know, in this tiny little hole, there's not much here, but when you actually go all the way out, that's a crazy increase. Once again, though, same base level of damage. The damage increase on his super is based on how many hits, if any, he takes during that attack. So the damage is not actually increasing on this too much. But the good thing is that it's not taking this into consideration with, say, an enemy hero. So you can still take damage from a mini boss and do more damage to the mini boss. This could be a very good mini boss killer, technically speaking. All right, so there's some helper options. So once again, I do feel like Nail could be used. The only thing to keep in mind about Nail is that when you're using Nail, his radius for actually taking or doing hits is much smaller than Goku's. Because remember, you have the power pole rush attack that increases your range so much that you probably will end up in situations where Nail's just not doing anything because you're just poking with the power pole from a longer distance. But I really feel like World King is pretty good. You place him in a good spot. You place the Pansy Bomb, Glorio Bolt, Power Pole Dance, Pansy Bomb. I feel like this could be very useful. I think World King would probably be one of his better choices. Otherwise, I think Botamo is a good second choice to World King, as you do have to worry about instances where enemies push up on you. Mini Goku is a unit that wants to get in, do his combos, and bounce the heck out. And you do need to worry about the power pole dance so you can survive a little bit. He's not doing crazy levels of damage, but he's doing nice little dot damages. All right, now we're going to go ahead and go into the skill suggestions over here. I'm going to have quite a few different builds for his skill suggestions, so pardon me on how many there are. I actually have a total of 3 options for you. Totally dependent on how you play as a player. This first build is primarily towards more of the people that just want to utilize the Pansy Bomb to its utmost effectiveness. In this case, you're going to go Pansy Bomb, Glorio, and then finally into Power Pole. So Glorio Bolt, Pansy Bomb, Glorio Bolt, and then Pansy Bomb again. I honestly actually would probably switch these after an afterthought of thinking about this right now. But either way, you want to focus up skill 1 and skill 2 to get that huge amount of damage with the radius, with Glorio Strike and the Pansy Bomb, continuous damage. But you still want to go into the Power Pole Dance to increase your defense, and while you're waiting for the Glorio skill 2 to recharge on the cooldown, you can utilize the Pansy Bomb along with the Power Pole Dance and maybe try to even escape a little bit with it if you didn't kill. In this case, at the end of the day, the super attack is an afterthought. The super attack is good, of course, but in this case, this is more of like a pressure-oriented kind of thing, because all of 3 of these being at level 8, or at level max level, skill 3 max, being at level 10, that's a lot of pressure on a constant basis. The super attack is still good, but I don't think it's integral to the usage of Mini Goku. In this case, you know, if you do want to go ahead and utilize the super attack as soon as possible, I would say level 7. It doesn't really do too much difference on damage. At level 7, that's probably when you're going to be around the time frame of the first mini boss showing up, if not maybe after. It just really depends on how much you're really stacking in there. Glorio Bolt doesn't actually need to hit max level. It can actually just wait until level 2. I think at level 2 it is very usable. The only thing I think you need to hit max level on mandatorily is definitely the Pansy Bomb. Otherwise, you can kind of sit comfortably a little bit with skill 2 Glorio and even skill 2 Power Pole Dance, but I kind of would prefer a higher level for the Power Pole Dance. You don't realize the defense and survivability of that Power Pole Dance until you really get used to it. But at this point, you can kind of meager off the level 3s for these skills so that you can fit in his super attack and take more advantage of that with this build right here. And then, of course, we have this final build right here where we kind of ignore the Glorio Bolt and we go more towards like on and off pressure with Pansy Bomb and then punting or tapping the Pansy Bomb in. Because remember, you can hit the Pansy Bomb away from you with the Power Pole Dance or with your rush attack. You don't need to have the Glorio Bolt. The Glorio Bolt does a nice little AoE damage, but the Pansy Bomb is basically what's doing the large majority of continuous damage and pressure, and it has the lowest cooldown. So in this build, we grab one of the Glorio Bolts, and we're constantly applying bombs and Power Pole Dances, and we're pushing into our super skill to get our damage there. I think a good portion of people might actually utilize this build, or a variation of this build specifically. Do let me know how you decide to move forward with that. So moving on to the card suggestions, and towards the end of this video, I do have 2 card suggestion builds for you. He is an attacker, but he's also kind of more of a poking attacker. He really wants to go in and out of combat a lot, and you really want to get that cooldown in a bit. So in this case, I think a strategic escape with a limit breaking jump gives you a nice bit of cooldown, and then the barrier actually saves you for when you're kind of trying to hop in and out of combat. And if the enemies put pressure on you. So I do think this is a solid build right here. Otherwise, I do think a build-up build, along with a little bit extra damage with Giant Slayer and Pursuer, can be really good, especially. I think that a lot of people would probably end up using this build specifically. That extra defense goes a long way. the damage from Pursuer specifically and Giant Slayer is really applying. I think that's a good solid build personally. But of course, otherwise, there is the standard attacker builds in my personal opinion, which would be Snowball, Barrier, and then Limit Breaking Jump. Very safe build. Just be very careful with your Snowball, as you do need to keep your stacks to really be taking advantage of this in general. And once again, Snowball, Giant Slayer, and Pursuer as a full forced attacker build. And I think that's going to be it. So anyways, guys, I think that's going to be it for the video. I do really like Mini Goku personally. He's one of my favorite characters kind of running the attacking slot. I think the Glorio Bolt and the Pansy Bomb is going to get both nerfed and buffed constantly throughout this game's lifespan. So based on what patch notes you're on, please do let me know how good Mini Goku is doing at the time of your comments versus the time of recording. At the time of recording, he actually got a nerf. So I'm a little bit sad about that, but do let me know what skills and card suggestions you have down in the comments. Remember, we're all just trying to figure out the best way to play the characters at the time of the updates and just have fun with the game, even though this is a very competitive space. Let me know down in the comments below what you think, and I hope you have a good day and a good night.